On the 9th of November, 2009, a woman walked onto a stage at the Municipal Auditorium in San Antonio, Texas, and sang for an audience. When it was over, she walked off, went home, and never sang in public again. She didn't announce it. She didn't say goodbye. Nobody in that room, and nobody in the world, knew they had just heard the last performance of one of the greatest voices in the history of American music. Her name is Linda Ronstadt, and she is 80 years old this month. She sold more than 100 million records. She was the first woman in history to headline arena tours. Before Madonna, before Beyoncé, before Taylor Swift, there was Linda, and she built the road all of them drive on. 11 Grammy Awards, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Kennedy Center Honors, the National Medal of Arts, handed to her by a president, and today she cannot sing a single note out loud. But here's the part nobody tells you. What took her voice wasn't an accident or an injury, and when it started, doctors examined her voice and found absolutely nothing wrong with it. This is the story of the greatest female singer of her generation, the disease no one could correctly name, and what she says she still does every day inside her own head. Stay with me. To understand what was lost, you have to start in the Arizona desert. Linda Maria Ronstadt was born on the 15th of July, 1946, in Tucson, Arizona, the third of 4 children. Her family was not poor. Her father, Gilbert, ran a prosperous machinery company in town. Her mother, Ruth, kept the house. They lived on land that had been in the family for generations, out where the Sonoran Desert runs down toward Mexico. And that geography is the key to who she became. The Ronstadts were German and Mexican. Her grandfather had come up from Sonora, and the house was full of Mexican music, the old ranchera songs, sung at family gatherings by aunts and uncles and cousins. Before Linda Ronstadt ever heard a rock and roll record, she knew 100 songs in Spanish. She started a folk trio at 14. At 18, she moved to Los Angeles. At 20, she had a record deal fronting a folk rock group called the Stone Ponies. And in 1967, their single, Different Drum, announced that a serious new voice had arrived. Then came the 70s, and the 70s belonged to her. She teamed up with a producer named Peter Asher, and what followed was one of the great runs in American popular music. 1974 brought Heart Like a Wheel, her first platinum album. The next year, You're No Good went to #1, and she released 2 platinum albums inside of 12 months. But the numbers don't tell you what was actually happening. What was actually happening was that a woman was doing something no woman had done before. Before Linda Ronstadt, female singers did not fill arenas. Women had hits, women had careers, but the enormous rooms, the 20,000-seat buildings, those belonged to men. Linda broke that. By 32, she had 6 platinum albums and had become the first female arena-class rock star in history. In 1978, her album Living in the USA became the first record by any artist ever to ship double platinum. 2 million copies sold before it reached the shops. Rolling Stone put her on the cover and called her rock's $1 million woman. Annie Leibovitz took the photographs. She was, by any measure available, the biggest female star in music. And then she did something almost incomprehensible. She walked away from all of it. Not from music, from the formula. She had cracked the code of enormous commercial success and simply refused to keep running it. Instead, she started taking the strangest left turns in the business. She went to Broadway and starred in a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta and got nominated for a Tony. She went into the studio with Nelson Riddle, the legendary arranger who had worked with Frank Sinatra, and recorded albums of great American songbook standards against her label's explicit advice. They became surprise hits. She made country harmony records with Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris. And then, in 1987, she made the record that mattered most to her. She wanted to record the Mexican songs of her childhood, entirely in Spanish, with traditional mariachi. Her label thought it was commercial suicide. They fought her. She did it anyway. The album was called Canciones de mi Padre, Songs of My Father. And the title came from a booklet that the University of Arizona had published in 1946, the year Linda was born, collecting songs that had been gathered by her aunt, Luisa Espinel, who had been an international singer back in the 1920s. Linda recorded her aunt's songs, backed by four of the finest mariachi ensembles in the world, with her own brothers Pete and Michael singing harmony behind her. It sold 2.5 million copies in the United States and became the biggest-selling non-English language album in the history of American recorded music, a record it held for more than 30 years. Worldwide, it has sold 10 million. It won a Grammy, and the Library of Congress later added it to the National Recording Registry as a permanent piece of the country's cultural heritage. The album her label begged her not to make became the most historically important record she ever released. Her personal life, meanwhile, was on the front of every magazine in America, and it was almost nothing like people assumed. She never married, not once. She was engaged for several years to George Lucas. She dated Jim Carrey and Steve Martin, and most famously, Jerry Brown, the governor of California and a candidate for president. A pairing so unlikely the press could not leave it alone. They met, as the story goes, after she sang the national anthem at a World Series game in 1977 and walked into a Los Angeles restaurant where she was seated next to the governor. Her own explanation of the attraction says a great deal about what her life was actually like. He was smart and funny, she said, not interested in drinking or drugs, and lived his life carefully with a great deal of discipline. This was different from a lot of men I knew in rock and roll. I found it a relief. She never did marry, but in 1990, she adopted a daughter, Mary, and in 1994, a son, Carlos. And she raised them so deliberately, far from the spotlight, that she once revealed something that tells you everything about the mother she chose to be. My daughter didn't know that I sang in English, she said, until she was about 6. She had only heard me sing in Spanish. The biggest English language female rock star in the world, and her own child had no idea. And then, quietly, in her early 50s, something started to go wrong. It began in the vocal exercises. Singers at that level work their voices daily, the way an athlete trains, and Linda found that she simply could not complete hers. Then it started showing up in performance. Her description of it is unsparing. I was struggling with pitch, she said. I didn't have any color that I could bring into my voice. I got to the point where I was basically really shouting and barking. She assumed it was mechanical, something physical, something fixable. I thought I had a pinched nerve or something, she said. So she started pulling back. Her final solo album came out in 2004. Her last album of any kind came in 2006. And in November of 2009, she played San Antonio and stopped. Doctors examined her voice, and here's the detail that turns this story. They found nothing wrong with it. The instrument was intact. The vocal cords were fine, which meant the problem was somewhere else entirely. In 2011, she announced her retirement to a newspaper in Arizona, and in August of 2013, she told an interviewer for AARP the thing she had been carrying. She had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and she could no longer sing a note. But even that turned out to be wrong. A neurologist put her on Parkinson's medication, and her symptoms got worse, not better. It took another 6 years to work out why. In 2019, Linda Ronstadt was re-diagnosed with progressive supranuclear palsy, a rarer, more aggressive cousin of Parkinson's caused by a different protein building up in the brain. It attacks movement, balance, coordination, and eventually swallowing. There is no cure. There is no treatment that stops it. And she has explained, better than any doctor could, why it took her voice first. The disease dismantles repetitive motion, and singing means your vocal cords repeat a motion thousands of times per second, especially on the high notes a soprano lives on. Of all the things it could have come for, it came for the fastest moving muscles she had. Since then, it has kept going. She has spoken about losing much of her hearing, about losing words, about her brain not keeping up. And she has described what that is like in a single sentence that is very hard to shake. It's like having this series of things taken away from you, she said. At first, I couldn't sing. Then I couldn't knit. That was really cruel. So what does a life look like after that? In her case, busy. She wrote a best-selling memoir, Simple Dreams. She spent 4 years touring a one-woman speaking show, telling her own story out loud, since she could no longer sing it. She wrote a second book about the Sonoran borderlands of her childhood. A documentary about her won the Grammy for Best Music Film. She became an advocate for research into the disease almost nobody has heard of. And the world has kept coming back to her. Her songs have found new generations through television and film. And a biopic is now finally moving forward with Selena Gomez, who is Mexican-American like Linda and who calls her a voice of my childhood, set to play her. When the casting was announced, Linda posted about it herself with a single line, "It all started with a simple dream." She turned 80 years old on the 15th of July. She cannot sing. She has lost her hearing, her handwork, sometimes her words. And when she was asked what remains, she gave an answer that is somehow both the saddest and the most defiant thing in this entire story. "I can sing in my brain," she said. And elsewhere, she went further. She said she still sings all the way through, in her mind, start to finish. And that when she does, it comes out, in her words, like a hummingbird. That is the thing about Linda Ronstadt that the disease never got. She was never really the voice. She was the person who decided what to do with it. The woman who sang standards when they told her not to, who sang in Spanish when they told her not to, who filled arenas nobody thought a woman could fill, and who raised 2 kids so far from all of it that her own daughter didn't know she sang in English. Take the voice away, and every one of those choices is still standing. She's 80, she's still here. And somewhere behind those eyes, right now, there's a song running all the way to the end. If this story moved you, stay with us. There are more like it here. The voices you grew up with and what they carried that you were never told.